Alright, we're going to install some C9 RGB pixel bulbs on a roof today. What I've done on our bulbs are easy to just kind of pop the cover off real quick so you can see the chip. And if you look, you can see real close in here there's an arrow, and that's important because you want your arrow to be pointing away from your controller. So this bulb, which is on the end, will be pixel number 1. And then your center wire, of course, is your signal wire, and then the left wire is your 12 volt, and then ground on the right, and those are labeled on there too. Might be a little tough to see in the video, but on the end here, we're gonna, before we put them on the roof, we're gonna solder in our extension wires correctly. Since it's gonna be up high, it's a little bit easier to solder things on the ground. So we'll put some of our bulk 3-bin wire on there and be able to put pigtails on it and hook it into our controller when we're done. And these just get installed like a normal C9. We just use our all-in-one bi-directional clip, and they snap right into a gutter right on a shingle. Alright, we have our C9 RGBs moving along here. You can see it's just an all-in-one clip on the gutter, just like you do a normal C9 bulb. We've soldered and shrink wrapped the wires together for a nice watertight connection. And this wire will come down, and that's what's going to hook into our controller. And we'll show that part once we get all our lights installed. But we're just moving along. Alright, so we did our first set over the garage, dropped our wire, and we just finished up doing the second set. And we just did the same thing. You can see we have a 3-bin wire coming off the RGB set. What we've done is snugged it into the gutter, and then you can see it right there on the house dropping down. Just gives it a cleaner look versus having rough wires running all over the place. And it's kind of hidden, and it comes down to our control box setup. And we just ran them across the front of the house. And then on our, this is channel 2. When we do our programming, this will be channel 2 on the setup. The other part of the roof line is channel 1. So we've also added to this house are some chloroplasts. These are from Boscoyo Studios in Louisiana. These are our 12mm pixels just punched through the back. And how these are wired up is from the bottom there's a wire from this candy cane that goes out to the controller. That's going to be channel 3 on our setup. And then you can see real close here, there's a wire coming out of this that comes over to this snowflake. And these two elements together are channel 3. So these two run on a channel. And then we just repeat it for the other two. So these are run in pairs. So those two are hooked together, the following two, and etc. So there's 4 channels here. So channels 3, 4, 5, and 6 on this display are hooked together. And every pair just runs one back to the controller. And you could run all these on one channel and then inject power every so often, just for simplicity, and the fact we had a 16-channel controller. We just ran them as individual channels just to make it a little bit simpler to set up. Now on this side of the house, we did about an 8-foot RGB tree. We have a whole another video of how we built this tree, set it up, and how you can program this tree. But this is running on its own Xlight controller, 16 strands of RGB, all coming back into this box. And then this box has an Ethernet cable that goes back to a switch, and we'll show that part next. So we're sitting back in the corner of the house by the house in the garage, and this is our second Xlight. So our 2 roof lines drop to this controller, and then our 4 lines coming from the candy canes and snowflakes out on the bushes. You can see the 4 lines because there are 8 pieces ran in pairs, so there's 4 lines coming back to the controller. So we use a total of 6 channels. Then we have a Raspberry Pi that we're running Falcon Pi Player on, and then this is a network switch. So how this sets up is you have your network switch, you have both controllers running into the network switch, and then the Raspberry Pi running in the network switch, and that's how we're letting the Raspberry Pi control 2 separate controllers. Alright, so now that we have our lights all installed and our controllers wired up, we can open up Xlights and we can do some setup. You can see we have 2 controllers this time, so we're going to have a total of 32 outputs. So our first controller is controlling the RGB tree. We've set that as 1 through 16. When we built the RGB tree in a previous video, you can see how we define those. Now the second controller is actually going to start at 17. And then you'll notice here the channel actually starts at 8161 because that's where the previous box left off. So you can't have the same channel ID across multiple boxes because the software will just get confused and won't know what to light and what not to light. So that's the watch out. So in Avitech Assistant, we had to go into this controller and tell it that it was output number 17 through 32 and the channels are 81, 61 and onwards. So that's kind of how you would set up if you had multiple controllers. And now our layout, you can see the same thing. The tree is defined off of, channel 1 through 7791, 16 strings, 47 pixels per strand. So that's nothing new from our previous video. The roofline you can see is a little different than our last roofline because it is universe 17 in channel 1, but again, that start channel is really 8161. Even though that's going into output 1 of the second controller, it really starts on channel 8161, and it's really universe 17 as we've defined it. And then you just draw your roof line on as you normally would. I want to show you something with custom models. There isn't a way to just create a snowflake in Xlights. You actually have to create it as a custom model in here. And to do that is they have this handy little tool. And you can see what we've done is kind of created the outline of the snowflake in this grid. And then we've put numbers in there. The numbers is the pixel number. So when we installed these pixels, we installed them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, jumped over to that part and installed them as they're laid out on this. There's a lot of models out on the internet for Xlights, so if you find those, usually they're in Excel format. You can actually download the Excel sheet and copy and paste it into here. It'll work. If you're handy, you can draw on your custom models, or if you made custom models, this is how you would put it in so Xlights will understand where everything is in your model. So that's a pretty straightforward way to do that, and then it draws this based on what you put in your little model guide in there. So it'll show up kind of how you've outlined it. So I did want to go over that real quick, and you can see this is our first candy cane is actually starting on channel 9181, which is again 9181 comes back to this channel 19, which is really the third input into the second controller that we put in. So that can be a little confusing for some folks on when they're running multiple controllers and naming their channels. So I just want to kind of spell that out. But that's pretty much it as far as that. You can drag these models in, create a sequence to do whatever you want. But let's do a quick scan of the lights all lit up and we can see how it looks.